Hey, we want to welcome everyone to You and the Law podcast show. Uh, we are glad that everybody is able to tune in and join us. We started a few minutes late. We had some technical issues, but we are live on Facebook. So I need to introduce everyone to the man of the hour who goes by the name of Chief Swag.
What's going on, V? How you doing, man? How you doing to the listeners out there? Y'all doing okay?
Man, I'm doing great. Doing great, man. Just glad to be in your presence. I tell you.
You should be.
You know,
You should.
it's a
You should be, man.
it's an honor. It's a
Yes, it is. Just
All
kidding.
right.
Just kidding, bro.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get some people to tune in and join us. We've got a topic that is a pretty hot topic, Keith, as you know, and we are dedicating every podcast show to Black History Month, but in the wake of what happened recently in Minneapolis, again with the tragic incident of a no-knock warrant, uh, this conversation is coming back up once again, just right after what took place with Breonna Taylor in 2020.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, so the interesting thing about this one is that it wasn't actually in Minneapolis; it's a suburb of Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis Police Department had been asked, could their SWAT team be utilized to do this? So, but it's a suburb, so people say that
What?
that's Minneapolis.
Well, Keith, I think so. From what I'm understanding, unless I got some things crossed up, St. Paul police contacted Minneapolis police and said, "Hey, we believe a person of interest is in Minneapolis at this apartment, this particular address. Will you guys go there and serve a warrant?" Well, they didn't ask. St. Paul Police Department didn't ask for a no-knock warrant. Minneapolis Police Department went to the judge in the Derek Chauvin trial
Right.
and asked for a no-knock warrant. So the question is, when another agency is asking you to do something in your city, but you take it upon yourself to go and seek a no-knock warrant, and now that agency is saying, "Hey, we didn't even ask for you guys to do that," and as a result of that, a 22-year-old black uh, male is was killed.
Virgil, I'll tell you, and thanks for clarifying that. I'll tell you, man. We this is the only state in the nation where no knock warrants are prohibited is Oregon, and
Correct.
so I think we need to lay out the guidelines for a no knock warrant. So the courts have said that no knock warrants are justified. First of all, you have to get a signature from a judge, and you have to
Hmm.
articulate in that affidavit why you believe a no knock warrant is warranted. And
Correct.
it's very clear that no knock warrants are to be used in a situation where you believe evidence will be destroyed, or if you believe that those persons who might be destroying evidence could cause harm to those officers. That has to be in that affidavit. That has to be in that affidavit before the judge will sign it. So once the judge signs it, you execute it. Um, Now, these these officers did announce, once they had the key, and they did say police. Um, the young man and he's awakened, and people are like, well, why did he have a gun? Well, there are a lot of people that he has a right to have that gun in that apartment.
Correct.
He's a registered gun owner, uh,
Correct.
and it's not uncommon for people to sleep with a gun under their pillow or next to them.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
uncommon because I've heard people say that, well, why do you have a gun? Well, that's his right. I mean,
That's his right.
I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
wasn't expecting uh, a no-knock warrant to be served,
yeah.
and then they were come to find out they were looking for his cousin, who was a suspect in a double homicide, I believe, but I do know at least a homicide.
Homicide.
So
Who actually lived not in that apartment complex building, but lived in in a different apartment complex building.
well, see, I don't have a problem if they have probable cause to believe that he had visited that place, that was a place that he was known to hang out.
To visit.
I don't have a problem with that, or visit. I don't have a
Yeah,
problem with that. And then the cousin eventually was arrested the following Sunday,
yeah. Who's 17 years old?
and
Yeah.
so I will tell you, man, that we had to here in my city we did have to add a no. We didn't have a no knock warrant policy. We were serving in excess of 40 to 50 of them a year.
Wow.
And they weren't being served, all of them weren't being served with the SWAT team.
Hmm.
And one of the things we did is we went and we developed, created a no knock warrant policy that's very, very, very tight. Basically, uh, before you even take that affidavit to the judge, a supervisor has to review it.
Hmm.
And the judges are going to ask really tough questions. And if the questions can't be answered, the judges here have said they're not signing them. And so
Hmm.
then
Okay.
once that judge signs it, uh, and then it goes back through the chain of command all the way up to the bureau commander. And once that's served, then eventually it comes through to me after it's been served. And if there's any problems with it, they don't do it. But we put
Hmm.
that in place. And so it eventually comes up to me so I can review it to make
Yeah.
sure that, it followed the protocols. So these are controversial in nature, but there is a need for them. I get it. There's a need for them, but are we using those too often? And on are certain aspects that need to be in those, are those aspects being tailored? Are they being manipulated in order to get a no knock warrant? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, Keith, and I think with the public outcry, especially what took place with Breonna Taylor in 2020 in Louisville. After that, you had several agencies or several states to implement some stricter guidelines that agencies would have to go through to obtain a no-knock warrant. In Kentucky, they passed the Breonna Taylor's bill that prohibited no-knock warrants. And so, in this situation here, pretty much like what took place with Breonna Taylor, where the boyfriend retrieved a weapon, he started shooting back at the police, um, and but she ended up losing her life. And Keith, I think some people, those who are watching our podcast show now and may who watch it afterwards, I think people have forgotten about what took place in Chicago with the no knock warrant in was it 2019 or 2020, where they went to this lady's apartment. She absolutely has no clothes on. Uh, she's telling them that they got the wrong apartment. You've got all these men, and eventually you see some women Nobody never takes her to a bedroom to let her put on some clothes. They handcuff her while she is naked, and she is standing in her living room with all these men surrounding her, and not one single man. Eventually, somebody put a blanket around her, but they'd already handcuffed
Can you
her.
imagine
And
how
so,
you imagine the humiliation? I mean, that's humiliating,
what,
man. Just the I
it is
wasn't. It
big.
wasn't even me, and I just imagine the humiliation. And
Well,
she's telling them, wrong house, and and I get people say things like that just to, but that wasn't the case. And another case was, why would you stand there and keep this
see
lady?
this woman with no clothes on.
Yeah, I
Repeat. I mean,
mean,
and again, and then I don't want to jump too far ahead of the situation, but um, what really gets me is the fact that these are men who they got mothers, they got wives, they got daughters, and not a single one of them had the common sense to say, "Hey, we need to take this lady into her room. Let a female officer take her into her room and let her get into some clothes."
I think it
No,
gets to the point, Virgil. We've seen this. I think it gets to the point of where there are some officers, and I say some, that believe when you're in that situation, your rights, your
you
um,
don't have any rights.
well, your not that you don't have any rights, but it's well, yeah,
Well, yeah, I think Keith. I think that you got some guys who just absolutely
well,
are in that tunnel.
it's the fact that it's okay to dehumanize you because you're a suspect. You don't deserve to be treated with respect because you're a suspect. So I
Hmm.
think that happens. I think in that situation, that's what that was. Hey, you're a suspect. Whatever. We'll get to that.
Yeah,
Really? I mean, how
I mean,
hard would it have been, ma'am? Do you have a robe? Can we put a robe around you until Can we do that? Can we put a robe around you? So you won't be humiliated, so that you won't seem as it's not going to embarrass you, humiliate you, and so that's what that's what common sense and emotional intelligence, that's where that comes in.
yeah.
There's been a lot of there's been a lot of complaints about no knock warrants and the necessity for them, and I'll say to the listeners, you know, there is a necessity for them. There's not a necessity on every warrant. Warrants are it is a warrants are a right. I'm sorry. It's to have a warrant and to do it correctly is a right is something that's in the Constitution.
Well,
You,
and you
you,
gotta,
you just can't make up. That's why you have to
oh,
have probable cause
yeah,
to get a
and you gotta
warrant.
get a judge. Yeah.
You don't
Well,
have
and
reasonable suspicion. You got probable cause.
yeah. Well, and Keith, as you know, and and I've got to say it because I just got to speak with honesty and just how I feel about it. You've got some police officers who are very deceiving, who they know how to write a warrant, a no knock warrant, present it to this judge, and the language in that no knock warrant is going to be what the judge is looking for. So these guys know that, and they know that they may be embellishing it, but the judge is not going to know that because he's taking these officers who are officers of the court to say you guys are going to do the right thing, and if you present this to me, I've basically found that there is probable cause to believe that you suspect that there is some kind of drug activity going on and that potentially these people may try to dispose of the drugs or they may try to, uh, e- you know, leave the home or whatever. So he signs his no knock warrant. So Keith, you got guys who they know the language and what to put in there. And so it's the general public is is the one that is not very familiar with what goes into these type of warrants. And so when things like what happened with Breonna Taylor and what happened with the lady in Chicago and just what happened in Minneapolis and what has happened so many other in so many other states, um, I think that's why in this situation you have now, Keith, seen gun activists, second, people who are pretty strong Second Amendment, who are coming out saying this young man had the right to have that weapon.
He
He
did.
didn't put his he didn't put his hand on the trigger.
Matter of fact, he had a straight finger, so he
Yeah,
wasn't in the trigger. And he did
yeah,
have a right to have a gun in his
yeah,
house, under his pillow, next to him. He did. He had the
yeah.
right.
And so you have gotten groups of people who you wouldn't think who would be coming out and speaking up about this young 22-year-old black male, and they're saying, hey, if that happened to him, that could happen to me in my home, and I may live in the suburbs, I may live in a gated community, and the police may get the wrong address, and they may come into my home, and I've got a gun on the nightstand, or I may have the gun under the pillow. So I've got every right to protect me and my family. Because as you know, Keith, just like with the situation with the lady in Chicago, the person that they were actually looking for had on an ankle monitor and was in a total, not even in the same building, but was in another building close to that apartment building. But he had an ankle monitor on, so they had the wrong address. So there have been a lot of times where warrants have been served and it's been at the wrong address.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you this. We can even go back farther. Years ago in Atlanta, something similar, and a 90-some-year-old black lady, African American lady, was killed. Wrong apartment, wrong house. She was
Hmm.
killed. And Virgil, I tell you, this gets it gets old, and
Well,
and as police executives, and I've said this before, man, it is extremely difficult to have those discussions with the community and try to justify, and there's just sometimes you can't justify why this continues to happen. Why is it appear that we appear reckless as law enforcement in so many incidents that involve African Americans? Why is that? Can't answer that question.
hmm
Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't um, white people who also fall victim to this type of thing. Don't hear a lot about those
Correct.
incidents,
Yeah.
but it just seems as though, and whether you hear a lot about it, if you're not hearing about it, that's a media thing, because you should cover that too.
Yeah.
However, it just seems as though every time we look up, there is an incident involving um, police officers and a person of color. It's not that that's happening every day. It's not that it's happening every week, but it's happening. And the African American community doesn't understand it. Um, and as African American chiefs, we can't explain it. And you got to be really careful, because you're going to upset both sides. But at the end of the day, the question is, why does this appear to continue to happen repeatedly? Why do you have a George Floyd, Breonna Taylor,
Yeah.
Ahmaud Arbery, this young man last week, Sandra Bland, Botham Jane? Uh, why do these things continue to happen in the African American community, and until we can show or concrete evidence that these things aren't happening. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think on the majority of these, I don't think that officer got up that morning wanting to kill someone. I really don't think that's the case. And some of those incidents are training incidents, but it doesn't make that family feel any better.
Well, and I think that's
the community feel any
yeah,
better.
yeah. And Keith, and I think that is the heart of what we are talking about, because when you look at what this family is going through, what the lady in Chicago went through, what Breonna Taylor's family went through and continues to go through, these families will deal with this for the rest of their lives. The police officer who shot and killed this young man in Minneapolis the other day, I don't want, I don't want to judge him, but at some point, it's not even a part of his memory. Yeah, it happened, but
Well, you got to also understand, Virgil. As being someone who's been in several incidents, I will tell you that, man, it is. You live with that the rest of your life. It's not something that you forget.
so let me ask you this, Keith. So when you make that statement, and that's true, but I'm gonna come out of the shell of a in law enforcement and just be a black man who's watching our podcast, and to say that, hey, you know what, man, that white dude, he don't, it ain't gonna bother him. He's gonna go on about his business. He's gonna go on. He's gonna retire, but this family, my family, we've got to deal with this for the rest of our lives. What?
Well, Virgil, I will tell you this: if this person has integrity, and this person and this person is the what we say to be as law enforcement, it's going to bother him the rest of their lives. If they have a conscience and a heart. We don't know this.
Well,
We know this officer personally.
I don't know him
But
from anybody. Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, Virgil, it's going to be difficult to convince the family that.
Oh yeah.
Because first thing, as a family, man, you're broken, you're hurt, and there's nothing anyone can tell you that will change your mind. And the thing about this situation, Virgil, this young man was in a house. He has a registered weapon. From what I gather, maybe even a concealed handgun. Anyway, it was registered to him. So he had a right. When that he had no felonies, we know that because he wouldn't have been able to have that gun
legal. That weapon.
And
correct.
From what we have heard, it was legal.
Correct.
And so that in itself makes the family, that hurts them even more, that he was doing everything right.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything in his home, everything right. He hadn't done anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He was in his house, had a right to have a gun. He has a right to have a gun under his pillow, whatever. We're even told as police officers, don't put your finger in the trigger guard unless you
are
threat. And he did not have his finger in the trigger guard.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
And the camera shows all of that. And that's what I
exactly.
think the family is having a difficult time understanding, trying to comprehend. How does this happen in your home and you're doing everything right?
Yeah. Well, and Keith, we got a comment from Debbie Mitchell, who says he never turned his weapon towards them at all. They are too quick to shoot. And see, that's the same way the family feels. That's the same way so many other people feel in Minneapolis or across the country is that these officers are so quick to shoot, and so quick to, after the situation, they want to make that person become the suspect. And and Keith, this is what really kind of disturbed me. It's the language that we use in policing that infuriates black people. Now, all of a sudden, at a news conference, you've got the interim police chief who states that he is a suspect. How the hell? How is he a suspect when he wasn't even the person that you were looking for? Now, what gets me is that you and I know if we go to a press conference, we're going to have all of the facts before we can even make a statement or make
You
a
better.
comment to the media.
You
You
better.
better make sure you have everything,
Right.
because uh, but when you become very defensive, and then now all of a sudden this young man wasn't even, they didn't even know that this 20 that he was going to be in that apartment. Uh, but now he becomes a suspect, and now you've just infuriated the family, you've infuriated the public, and once you say it, it's out there. You can't take it back. Now you may try to backtrack and say, "Well, we didn't know what we know now." Well, come on. You are the experts. We are the experts. You're supposed to know. I remember my former mayor in Bowley saying, "You better cross your I's and dot your T's, because if you don't, it's gonna come back and it's gonna bite you where you don't want it to bite you."
Well, Art says, and thank you, Art, for uh, the comment. Poor and inadequate training, and the thing about that is that the SWAT team is supposed to be the best, the best of the best, tactically sound,
Yeah.
um, and so that's going to be play a major part in it, the training. And I'll say this, we have split seconds to make decisions, and that's what our job is. Sometimes we do have to make split second decisions, but that's going to be the question of, the gun was never pointed. Could you all have take? I mean, and these are questions that people are asking. I'm not saying that those are questions that I'm posing, but those are going to be some good questions people are going to ask. Well, um, what did were you able to use taser? Were you able to tackle him? Were you able to? I mean, those are things that everybody, because Virgil, when you are involved in a shooting, you do have, when a shooting occurs, the community and the family wants to know, well, if you had to shoot him, why didn't you shoot him in the leg? Things like that. I think they're going to have to. They're going to scour over uh, the SWAT team's training records. They're going to scour over um, that officer's training records. When was the last time they trained? Did they debrief? Um, um, those are going to be the kind of things that they're going to go and other things, psychological test, and does this officer have a history of racism? What's de-escalation training? There's going to be a lot of questions that they're going to have to ask. Does
Well,
and I will tell everybody that a gun does change the difference in the way you respond, but you have to be able to articulate why you felt that was that, and that's going to be the key. I can't speak for them. They're going to have to. They're going to have to articulate why he felt deadly force was necessary. I can't do it. You can't do it. Nobody else can do it for those individuals. They have to. He has to be able to articulate it.
well, and Keith, and I think one of the things that's going to really be uh, at the forefront of fact finding is going to be the agency who, St. Paul, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. They're the ones who asked Minneapolis PD to go to this apartment and to see if they could locate this person who was a person of interest in a homicide in St. Paul. Well, St. Paul is saying, hey, we didn't ask for no knock warrant. Well, now it has come out that the Minneapolis Police Department is the one who said we're going to request this no knock warrant. Now it's going to have two agencies. One agency is saying we didn't ask for that. The agency who's conducting the warrant is saying this is what we did. Well, if the St. Paul Police Department knew that this person of interest was a suspect in a homicide, they probably would have said, "Hey guys, you may want to take some you know extra measures or precautions." But they never suggested a no knock warrant.
You wouldn't do a no knock warrant on because it's clear it doesn't say anything about murder suspects or anything like that. It says that you are serving a warrant. You've got a no knock warrant because you believe evidence will be destroyed, and if you believe during the destruction or attempted destruction of the evidence that an officer may be in danger. But I was talking to some of my guys who were like, "Man, how did you get a no knock warrant on that?" You know, bottom line is if you think that suspect's in there, full SWAT call out, that's the way you would execute it. You wouldn't execute a no knock warrant on that. You would do a SWAT call out where all the operators trying to negotiate, the loudspeakers shoot. One of the things that even some of the former SWAT guys I was talking to said, you go in, you open the door, throw a stun grenade in. If it's that point, stun him with the grenade. You know what I'm talking about, flashbang.
Yeah, flashbang. Yeah.
And so those are going to be questions that they're going to have to answer. And, thank goodness for body cameras.
Well, and without the body cameras, you wouldn't be able to see that he didn't have his hand on the trigger. You wouldn't be able to see that, hey, this young man was sleeping on the sofa. Anybody would be startled, Keith. I mean, even you and I, if somebody kicked in, there's home invasions, and you get people who holler, "Police, police, police." It's a home invasion. Now you're startled. You jump up. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what to do. And if you are a citizen who has a weapon, you're going to use that weapon to defend yourself, and that means you're going to start shooting at people. Now, and I think this is where, just like with the state of Oregon you mentioned, they absolutely ban no knock warrants. One of the things that I found out doing researching for the show, Keith, is that I think between 2010 to 2016, there were close to over 80 citizens were killed, and 13 police officers died as a result of no knock warrants. But you got to look at all the other injuries and serious injuries that did not result in a person losing their life. And so, Keith, the origin of no knock warrants goes back to the Nixon and Reagan administration when there was this war on drugs. So we still have a drug problem, but you still have agencies who are utilizing no knock warrants. And at the end of the day, that warrant may not even be fruitful. Because
I mean, they're necessary, but the
they're
law is
necessary.
specific on when you can win and how to, when and how to use it. It's very specific. So there's no ambiguity in what you can do with a no knock warrant. There's none. I will tell you right now, man. There's some heads together, and there's been some long talks about policy, about um, mutual aid, uh, intel. I can tell you all those conversations. Uh, you know, why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? I mean, it's going to be. I guarantee you, there's some chiefs that are being grilled right now regarding that, and
Oh,
it's just a
well,
sad situation. It's just a sad
yeah.
situation. And I will tell you, man, the parents in watching the parents, they have been extremely brave,
Oh, very intelligent, very articulate.
very articulate. It's been they have been extremely brave and calm uh,
Very,
during this
yeah.
situation, and they've asked, and also it seems the community has been very calm. They've gathered and vigils and stuff, but the community has been very calm, and I think that's because the parents are. I think
Well,
that has a lot to do with it.
and Keith, you haven't seen any buildings being burned. It's this situation here is a lot different than what took place with George Floyd. Um, but you've got not just black people coming out asking questions, coming out saying this isn't right. You've got a lot of different other races who are saying this young man had every right to have his weapon. He you know he actually was following um, some really good safety measures because he never put his hand on the trigger. And I think this is why the public, and I've got to say, Keith, our good friend Vera Bumpers is on listening. So Vera,
And
we definitely,
Miss Candy too.
yeah, Miss Candy, we definitely thank you for tuning in and joining us for this topic, which is a
Hey,
really good
hey,
discussion.
Virgil, I would be remiss if I did not um, honor or recognize Chief Bumpers for being the pioneer, the female policing pioneer that she is,
Oh yeah,
not just in the Houston area, but throughout the nation and even more
yeah.
abroad. Very professional and has opened the door. So, being that this is Black History Month, I have to do a shout out to Chief Bumpers on the job
Well,
that she does.
well, we had our own last year during Black History Month, and so before the end of the month, we've got to get her on, and we've got to get on a good friend of ours, Chief M.T. Berry, who was the first African American police chief with the Oklahoma City Police Department. So we've got to get him on and get both of them on and talk about their uh, how they became who they are and
We
what
got
they're
to get
continuing
another.
to do.
We got to get another strong Black woman on the show, Miss Candy. Uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
with,
Well,
with
she,
nonprofit and what she
but
does in the community, and I think
yeah, but man, she has this. She's got this where she got to be in. She's got a bedtime of seven seven p.m. So she's got to
she, she gonna get
she,
you,
she
man. You better just cut that off right now. Leave that on. 'Cause she's gonna get you. Hey, Bird, it is a it's this does get old, doesn't it?
it Keith, it gets old, but what really is concerning to me as somebody in law enforcement, as a black man, as a father, is the fact to look at these parents, what how their life is just changed because of the actions of irresponsible police officers. And people are going to say, well, they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know who was in that apartment. I'm gonna go back to this deal just like with the surgeon. If you go to the doctor to get a colonoscopy, But next thing you know, you have you've been the doctor did some other procedure. Now you ain't nothing gonna change it, but you're not gonna like what happened. There's gonna be a lawsuit, malpractice, and all that kind of stuff. When you are a professional, you are supposed to know what you're doing and how to do it. If you're gonna fly a commercial airline, you better know how to land it. You better know what you need to do in an emergency situation. And law enforcement is no different. And I think this is the thing people continue to say, well, these guys make mistakes. They learn from it. They go through training. The black community, these families, this Breonna Taylor's family is sick and tired of hearing excuses. The mother and the father and the family and friends are sick and tired of hearing excuses of what took place in Minneapolis. So and Keith, I gotta say this because when the situation took place in Chicago, now the mayor, who is black female, you and I know who the police chief had just became the police chief, I believe, in Chicago. The mayor had been briefed about it, but she said she hadn't been briefed about it. But then all of a sudden she had to backtrack and said, yeah, she was aware of it. But then when this lady wanted this video to be released, the mayor in the city of Chicago took her.
No, it wasn't Mayor Lightfoot. That was Rahm Emanuel.
No. That was Lightfoot. She is the one who Emmanuel wasn't even in office when this took
You sure
place.
about that?
Yeah. She hadn't been in office that long, but she was there because I just watched an interview with this lady on CBS News, and she just recently settled a $2.9 million lawsuit against the city of Chicago. So those guys' actions and watching this lady stand up against the wall butt naked cost the city of Chicago $2.9 million. Now she said no amount of money is going to change anything. This woman now suffers from PTSD, but this is a professional woman. Even if she wasn't a professional woman, this woman was humiliated. It was caught on body cam. It is all over the world with her standing there naked.
And we don't even know what type of comments were made during or after or up until today. We don't even know if they took photographs, because man, police
we can do some stupid stuff.
Some police officers they will do that to show at a later date, or show somebody at a later date. So we don't even know to what extent that occurred. But listen, let's go back to the young man in Minnesota. Everything that we tell people to do when it comes to police, it's just like when you're driving a car. What do we tell people? Pull over, show your hands.
Mm-hmm.
We tell them everything. He wasn't doing anything but being in his house.
Yeah.
He was in his house getting, sleeping. That could have been me or you in our home.
Yeah.
That would occur.
Yeah.
And who's to say we wouldn't have done the same, reacted the same way, or even more to a level of, or escalated to a higher level? Who's to say that? When you get woken, when you get disturbed in the middle of the night, and I mean, man, who knows? But now, can you imagine those parents? The phone when those parents were notified. Can you just imagine? They're like, man, this what?
Yeah.
First thing, my son's not a murder suspect. Second, he was in his own, in this apartment sleep, and now he's dead.
Yeah.
And so those things in themselves is just really hard for people to comprehend.
Well, and I think that is the heart of this conversation. The fact that this family they have been misled, misguided, given false information after their son's death. The police department tried to say he was a suspect. Then they had to walk it back. Well, we didn't. Now we know what we didn't know. And again, and I think this is why the and black people are some of the most forgiving people. But I think this is why so many police officers have the attitudes that they have with young black men, young black women, when their attitude is, man, I don't want to hear what you got to say. I don't respect you. And now you got people saying, well, your parents should have raised you better to respect authority. Well, now what took place with the lady in Chicago with no clothes on, standing naked in her apartment. Now, another police officer in, let's say, in Little Rock, he goes and has contact with the black lady. This black lady has an attitude. Now he's trying to figure out why she has an attitude with him, but she just has an attitude with police. Period. He may not. He wasn't even around when that happened. But these guys don't understand, Key, that this is why black men and black women have the attitudes that they have. Now, it's upon you to build better relationships and to say, hey, listen, what took place in Louisville wasn't right. What took place in Chicago wasn't right. Uh, but you got to have these conversations. But you got some of these guys who feel that they are above that and they don't owe people any kind of explanation.
I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna get mad about and upset about. If I hear one person say, "Oh, their family's gonna get paid," I don't want to hear that.
No, man, they're not worried about
You
money.
know, you hear people say that, man. They're not worried about that. They worry about
No,
their baby. They're more than their baby. But you got people that'll say, "Man, they're gonna get paid. They're gonna get
yeah,
paid." Man, what? So now you put a price on a life.
yeah,
You know, and this is what some people do. They see people as dollar signs, and that family doesn't see that. I think Aubrey's mom sees dollar signs. You think she cares about the money? You think George
no,
Floyd's family care? I mean, do you think that was their priority? I mean, do you
no,
think Breonna Taylor's family, Sandra Bland's family, the list goes on and on? Do you think that was, they sit back and say, man, I hope my loved one gets shot by the police so we can get some money? You think that's just amazing.
Well,
People
Keith,
say that. It's amazing that people believe that. And it's so disrespectful, man.
yeah.
It's so disrespectful for people to say things like that. Man, that is so disrespectful and so inept and so it's just wrong on so many levels. Uh,
It, it, well, it is, and I think just to go back to what took place with the lady in Chicago, listening to her interview where she said this $2.9 million can't change what took place with me. That money absolutely means nothing to me. I was working. I don't need the money. I didn't. This is something that the city settled with me. But her life is forever changed until the day she leaves this earth.
because
And
that is captured and memorialized on video.
yeah,
And like I said, we don't know who took video of that. But the thing about it is, she can never get over that.
She can never.
Never.
And I think that is a thing that I hope people will take away from this podcast show and this topic of we're talking about no knock warrants, the controversy behind them, why there should be some federal legislation that uh, prohibits agencies from serving no knock warrants, but it has to be with some very strict guidelines, and there has to be from a judge that goes from the court system back down to the agency, where the agency heads, the police chiefs, are the ones who not to review after the fact, but review before this warrant is even served. Because the police chiefs are able to ask some questions, but you've got some people who say, well, I don't want to question my guy's judgment. I don't want to make it feel like I'm going against him. Well, you know what? I think we're past that time, Keith, of saying we need to change what we're doing, because what we're doing right now is not right. It is killing people, and it is leaving families suffering for the rest of their lives. And I can and I'm gonna say this, you know, it may piss some people off, but 10 years from now, none of those police officers in Chicago gonna remember what happened, what they did to that lady. 10 years from now, the police officers in Minneapolis won't even think about this young man. Same thing with the police officers in Louisville.
I
And
think there's some.
Breonna,
We can't say all of them.
and there may be some, Keith. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I think,
Don't say none of them,
well,
any of them, because that's not true.
you're right.
There
But
will be some
I
that may not. Yeah.
and I think this is why people are so, even just with us talking about it, Keith, it really is, it's frustrating to know that the profession that we care so much about has got so many problems. We want everybody else to change, but we're not going to change the way we do things. And this topic of the no knock warrants is going to be around for a long time, for many more months. You're gonna have a lot of, like you stated earlier, you're gonna have a lot of police chiefs who are going to be getting grilled about it. You're gonna have those who are trying to become police chiefs may be going through interviews, and this question is going to come up about what would they do, or how do they feel about no knock warrants.
Well,
So,
I don't think they need to be banned, because there is a need for them in certain situations. So they shouldn't
mhm.
be prohibited altogether. But we've got to get a hand on
Well,
how to, yeah.
let me ask you this, Keith. So in Oregon, Oregon has a ban on no knock warrants.
Hmm.
Well, with the ban on no knock warrants, Oregon has not had a citizen killed by a police officer serving a warrant. So, and again, every state is different, but like you stated, there is a purpose for it. But Keith, when I go back and I look at the history and the origin of it, and you look back at the war on drugs, and you look back at the Nixon administration, you look back at the Reagan administration, the Bush administration, even the Clinton administration. This war on drugs, we got to get tough. Well, yeah, there is a problem, but what you have done is emboldened the law enforcement to say, even on some of the most smallest things, we're going to get a no knock warrant. Well, you can go back. You got to return that service to the judge. You can put whatever you want. The judge is not going to question you. And I think this is goes to the heart
No,
of,
Virgil. No, Virgil. There
well,
are some judges that are very, very strict when it comes to what's in those no knock warrants. And let's say this too. No knock warrants have been in existence since 17 or 16 something. So
Yeah,
it's not they're not new, but there has to be some changes. There has to
yeah.
be.
There has to be some changes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Keith, you know what, man? We kind of started a little late, but we're coming up on the top of the hour for the show, and I want to say, man, it's been a great topic, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in and joining us. Uh, and you want to hope and pray that these things don't happen again, so these families don't have to suffer. But man, the culture of policing has to change, and as we, you know, talk more about Black History uh, and Black History Month, uh, all of these things have impacted the Black community for decades and decades, and continues uh, to deal with these things in the Black community. So, um, man, it's we've got to do something. Something has got to be done different. These families deserve better because they can only go to a grave site and visit their son, just like Breonna Taylor's family. So something's got to be done different.
Yeah, I agree, Virgil, and to the listeners, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for the comments related to this topic.
Yeah, we had a very good audience, and so we want to remind everybody that we will be back next Thursday uh, with Chief Swag. Uh, so
You know,
Chief Swag,
don't
what
don't
what
hate
what time?
don't hate because you don't have a
The swag,
well, no,
the
that you
swag.
can't come up with a moniker. Don't hate, man. I've told you, man. Hate doesn't look good on you, man.
So T Swag, are we gonna be on at 6 p.m. uh, next Thursday?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, everyone, you've heard it. We're gonna be back on next Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and so uh, thank you for tuning in and listening to us. We will see everyone next Thursday on You and the Law on Facebook Live.